Last night, you noticed something small, something you almost ignored, a faint movement, a soft shift in the quiet, not loud enough to alarm you, but just enough to pull your attention away from everything else. You paused, listened, waited, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then it came back, slightly different, slightly closer. And suddenly, you weren't just hearing it anymore. You were tracking it, and that's where it begins. Because here's what most people don't realize: it's never the first moment that matters. It's what happens after your brain decides, this might be important. And once that switch flips, it doesn't flip back easily. The first thing you notice is the interruption. You were doing something normal, maybe scrolling, maybe lying still, maybe just letting your mind drift. And then, something small breaks that flow. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just enough to create a shift. Your brain is designed to notice change, not constants. So when something new enters your awareness, even if it's subtle, it gets priority. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's different. But that's not the real reason it stays with you. The second thing is how quickly your mind starts building a pattern. Even if the sound or movement isn't consistent, your brain tries to connect it. One moment links to the next. A faint repetition begins to form. And once your brain thinks it sees a pattern, it treats it as something intentional. Scientifically, this is how humans reduce uncertainty. We create order out of randomness. But here's the problem. When the pattern isn't actually stable, your brain doesn't stop. It keeps trying to fix it. Here's what most people don't realize: your mind would rather chase a broken pattern than accept there isn't one. The third thing is unpredictability. It doesn't happen when you expect it. It doesn't repeat in a way you can follow. It appears, disappears, then returns just when you start to relax. And that timing matters, because unpredictability holds attention longer than consistency ever could. If it were steady, your brain would adapt. It would fade into the background, but it doesn't. And because it doesn't, you stay engaged. And this is where it starts to feel different, because now you're not reacting anymore. You're anticipating. The fourth thing is proximity. It's not far away. It's not distant noise blending into the environment. It's close, just near enough that you feel it exists within your space. And that closeness changes how your brain processes it. Humans are wired to monitor nearby uncertainty more closely than distant certainty. So even if it's harmless, your mind treats it like something worth watching, something that might change at any moment. But that's not the real reason it feels so intense. The fifth thing is the silence around it. After each moment, there's nothing. No confirmation, no continuation, just quiet. And in that quiet, your brain fills in the gaps. You start imagining possibilities. What caused it? Where it came from? Why it stopped? And because there's no clear answer, every possibility feels equally valid. That's what makes it powerful. Not the sound itself, but the space it leaves behind. This is where it gets interesting, because now, you're not just experiencing reality. You're experiencing your interpretation of it. The sixth thing is how your body reacts. You might not notice it immediately, but your breathing changes. Slightly slower, slightly quieter. Your body becomes still. Your movements reduce. That's not fear. That's focus. Your nervous system is narrowing your attention, prioritizing perception over action. And the longer the uncertainty continues, the longer your body stays in that state. It's subtle, but it's persistent. Here's what most people don't realize. Your body responds before your thoughts even catch up. The seventh thing is attention shift. At some point, whatever you were doing stops mattering. Your focus moves entirely toward that small, repeating disruption. Even when it's not happening, part of your mind stays there, waiting, listening, monitoring. This is how attention works. It doesn't need something loud or dramatic. It just needs something that refuses to resolve. And that's when it starts to feel bigger than it actually is. The eighth thing is time distortion. The gaps between each moment feel longer. The silence stretches. Seconds feel heavier. Your brain is processing more than usual, trying to predict what comes next. And when prediction fails, it slows everything down. Not physically, but perceptually. What might only last a few minutes feels extended, drawn out, almost intentional. But that's not the most important part. The ninth thing is what happens after it stops. Eventually, everything goes quiet again, completely. No more movement, no more sound, just stillness. But your mind doesn't reset immediately. You keep listening. You stay aware. You expect it to return. And even when it doesn't, that alertness lingers, because your brain hasn't fully closed the loop. And this is where it gets deeper, because now it's not about the moment anymore. It's about what it did to you. You start noticing more small sounds, tiny movements, subtle changes in your environment. Things that were always there now feel amplified, not because they changed, but because your awareness did. Your mind has shifted into a different mode, one where it pays attention to what it used to ignore. But that's not the final realization. The final thing is understanding that it was never really about the sound or the movement or whatever caused it. It was about what happens when something small refuses to fade away, when it repeats just enough, close enough, unpredictable enough to keep pulling your attention back. Your brain doesn't dismiss it. It tracks it. It questions it. It builds meaning around it. Not because it's important, but because it doesn't fit into a clear explanation. And when something doesn't fit, your mind keeps working, over and over, trying to make sense of it, even if there's nothing to find. That's why it stays with you. Because in that quiet, subtle moment, something shifted, not outside, but inside your perception. You became more alert, more aware, more sensitive to the patterns and the lack of them. And once that awareness turns on, it doesn't fully turn off. So the next time you notice something small, something that interrupts your focus just enough to make you pause, don't ignore it too quickly. Not because it means something is out there, but because it reveals something about how your mind works, how it reacts, how it fills in the gaps, how it holds onto things that don't fully resolve. And once you see that, you start seeing it everywhere, in sounds, in movements, in silence, in moments that feel slightly off, but not enough to explain. If something like this has ever happened to you, where a small, almost invisible detail quietly took over your attention, think about it. Because the more you notice these patterns, the more you realize it was never just the thing itself. It was what your mind did with it. Once that process starts, it doesn't need much to begin again.